Hey there, I'm Emily and I'm a 25-year-old recluse. While I'm neither unemployed nor in education or training, my family, especially my brother, might see me as such. How did I end up this way? It all stems from my mistrust of people, which began in middle school. My mistrust has various causes, but for me, it was mainly because I was ignored. I'm not sure why, but it seems people didn't find me interesting since I was only interested in machines. I've always loved tinkering with computers and excelled at anything related to them, making me useful at home. However, this was short-lived. As my grades started to suffer, I spent more time with computers than with friends. My parents began to worry and started scolding me by the time I graduated elementary school. "How long are you going to keep playing with machines?" they would ask. During middle school, while being scolded by my parents, I gradually thought I shouldn't be doing what I loved. I started isolating myself in my room when school was off, cutting off all contact with the outside world. This behaviour led to more people calling me weird or dangerous, and I became increasingly isolated at school as well. My only ally during this time was my brother Daniel. From a young age, he knew how to motivate me and was always good at flattering me. With Daniel's support, I graduated from compulsory education, but I didn't go on to high school. Instead, I started doing jobs I could manage from my computer at home. Right after graduating middle school, around 16, I worked part-time and used that money to buy old computers. I disassembled and rebuilt them from scratch. By 20, I was building computers to sell, and soon I started a business offering affordable computers. At 25, I had made a small fortune and could contribute $2,500 monthly to my parents' household while still having money left over. Despite discussing my job with my parents several times, they didn't understand it. After a few arguments, they decided that as long as I supported myself, they didn't care what I did. This arrangement meant they no longer interfered with my actions, allowing me to live freely in their house. However, my brother, who had once been my ally, didn't think highly of me. He seemed fed up with his sister, still holed up in her room tinkering with machines even after turning 20. He started acting harshly towards me, and our conflicts increased. Our relationship worsened after he got married. His wife, who had never thought highly of me, influenced him negatively. This ongoing situation led to me being called the plague of the family home. Despite isolating myself in my room, I felt my heart wasting away from the relentless malice aimed at me, which was different from my parents' worried words. My once comfortable home transformed into a den of enemies. I no longer felt at ease as my allies disappeared, and my parents were won over. Even though I had sufficient income and contributed to the household expenses, my brother and sister-in-law saw me as a freeloader. They started saying things like, "We were going to drive you out of the family home and live here with our parents." Feeling fully estranged and unwanted, I decided it wouldn't matter if I left once I found a new place. If I was being kicked out, I wouldn't need to contribute to household expenses anymore, which meant I could save that money. It was almost a relief. While I was considering leaving, my brother suddenly brought up inheritance. He misunderstood my situation, thinking our parents had money, and that was why I could live comfortably while unemployed. When the topic of me leaving came up, he said, "We'll take care of Mum and Dad, so we should inherit their assets. You should just renounce your claim to the inheritance." The reality was, our parents could live comfortably because of the money I provided. Without it, they wouldn't maintain their lifestyle. But to my brother, I was just a burden. I felt I might as well leave, but I decided to ask one last time, "Are you really okay with me leaving?" My brother laughed condescendingly. "We'd be glad if you could just get out already." His response solidified my resolve to leave. a few days after my brother's declaration, I was still holed up in my room. During this time, my brother and sister-in-law were relentless in their efforts to get me out. They persistently knocked on my door, instigated Mom to stop providing meals, and even said things like, "Do your own laundry." These were all things I would have to do if I lived alone, so I didn't find them particularly troublesome. But I wasn't just going to let this happen without preparing some revenge. I am good with machines, and perhaps my brother had forgotten that. He didn't realize what it meant for me to have free access to a computer. I wasn't going to leave quietly. My brother's marriage was the only opportunity for our parents to see a grandchild. Knowing my parents, blinded by this, approved of me leaving, I decided to set a trap that would activate when I left the house. Finally, I found a new place, finished the necessary procedures, and prepared to leave. Just before I left a parting message for my parents and brother. "I've been providing for the family, and you've forgotten all the good I've done. I hope you realize who the real curse on our family wealth is." My parents seemed taken aback for a moment, but they probably believed my brother would somehow manage. In the end, all three of them brushed off my words as sour grapes. I'm sure they didn't take what I was saying seriously. I thought it was best this way for now, so I decided to go ahead and leave the house. I brought over a considerable amount of equipment from my family home and bought additional items, as well as necessary furniture and appliances. I arranged everything the way I liked, furnished the place with my favourite interior design, and created a supremely comfortable space. I found myself working more efficiently than ever. Living alone was initially daunting, but it was so easy to live in this environment that I wished I had done this sooner. The locals were kind and friendly, and life was surprisingly comfortable. Since I left my family home and started doing everything myself, I've been having a blast, experiencing many things for the first time. In stark contrast to my fulfilling days, I wondered if life at my family home was getting tough since they lost my income. Then suddenly I got a call from my mother. "Hey, Emily, did you do something to our machines?" "What? Do something to the machines?" "Yeah, there's something off with the computers and electronics." "I have no idea about that. I used to look after them for free because we were family, but since you treated me like a nuisance and kicked me out, even if you're my parents, you'll have to pay the regular price." "What? You're really greedy. We're your parents. At least give us a discount." "Well, in that case, I prefer to give my friends a discount. Unlike you, my friends don't treat me harshly." "Fine, you cheapskate!" Inwardly, I thought, oh, it's that issue. While relieved that another trap had not been sprung, I handled the situation. My mother, however, must not have liked my reaction. She hung up abruptly and even sent a spiteful email saying something along the lines of "mean kids lose their friends." It made me wonder who the real adult was. Honestly, it was self-centered, if not selfish. As for what I had done to the family computer, I had merely returned all the status adjustments I had been doing for free for my family back to their original state. To a novice, it probably seemed like the computer started malfunctioning on its own. When I told them to request the company to fix it as an individual, they threw a tantrum. But, well, it was within my expectations, so I decided to let it be. 6 months after being kicked out of my home, just as I was getting the hang of living alone, my father gave me a call. "I hate to ask, but can you lend me some money?" "Excuse me, lend you money? What do you mean?" "Well, it's just that your brother and his wife have been spending a bit recklessly. They seem to think we're rolling in dough and keep asking for money to buy things or go places." "I have no idea about any of this. Why do you always come to me with everything? I've heard of daughters who live alone sending money home, but parents asking their children for money? Isn't that something you're supposed to do out of generosity? That's easier said than done. Well, even $500 would help. I'm not giving you anything. I won't lend you money either. I have no intention of helping you out financially anymore. Of course, if you pay me for my services, I'll work on your machines. How? You've really become stingy. I guess what Mum said was true. During my unemployed years, my father would say things like, "You used to do whatever you wanted at home," and kept grumbling about other things, but I didn't care and just hung up. He didn't send any emails, but started calling more than twice a day. I just thought, what troublesome parents I have. A few days later, my brother, clearly in a bind, called me next. When I asked why they were calling me in turn, he said, "Tell me why our family home was wealthy before." He must have had a hunch that their financial situation had worsened since I moved out, but it's too late. My comfortable place is my current home, and there's no way I'm leaving it ever again. Maybe the reason our family was wealthy was because I was contributing $2,500 each month. I didn't have to give that much, but I felt gratitude for my parents raising me. So why would I continue to support a home that kicked me out? There's no way I would. I see, so that's why Mum and Dad's financial situation suddenly worsened, my brother said. I'm sorry, but even if you asked me to come back, I have no intention of doing so. I understand. Looking back now, what we did was terrible. I'm sorry. It's too late for apologies. I have no plans to be involved with any of you in the future. Don't call me any more. Hey, wait! Ignoring my brother's protests, I hung up the phone. When I left home, I resolved never to get involved with them again. It's inconceivable to forgive them that easily. I decided to cancel my cell phone contract to avoid their calls. 5 years passed since I cancelled my mobile contract and started living alone. I got married. My partner works in the same field and understands my lifestyle. He helps with the housework and is incredibly supportive. I thought about contacting my parents since they're technically my family, but it felt too late. I haven't reported anything to them. However, my husband expressed his desire to greet my parents, so I hired a detective to investigate their current situation. A slew of troubling news came to light. After I cut off contact, my parents borrowed money from various lenders to maintain their lifestyle and keep my brother and his wife tied to the family home. The debts accumulated with no hope of repayment, leaving them helpless. My parents alone owed over $100,000, and the house was used as collateral. The place where my family home once stood is now a vacant lot. I felt a bit sad about my family home, but I concluded that they reaped what they sowed. I decided to investigate my brother's current situation. He had suggested a divorce due to his wife's extravagant spending habits, but she didn't accept it. They're currently going through a divorce lawsuit, but it's time and money consuming. His wife hired a lawyer and is resisting the lawsuit, insisting on staying with my brother. They don't have children, and it seems my brother is infertile, which was confirmed by a doctor. My parents, who hoped for a grandchild from my brother, were disappointed and ended their cohabitation. The family home was sold to pay off the debt. That was the pitiful state of my family. This terrible situation was evident from a casual investigation. Meeting these people in this state was not advantageous for me or my husband. After all, I have a kind husband, 4 children, and a dog. We've bought a large home and are living the life they idealized. If they knew this, they would surely try to take advantage of it. I couldn't bear such a thing, so I arranged for my information to be protected from personal disclosure requests. I made sure never to get close to them again, and asked my husband to bear with not greeting them for our marriage. He looked disappointed, but when I explained the situation, he understood and hasn't said anything since. When the situation at my family home calms down, I hope a time of reconciliation comes and I can get along with my parents and brother.